progress.
Okay, good morning everyone. Shalom Aleichem. We continue Mishnah Berurah in Sefer Chofetz Chaim Yomi. Sefer Chofetz Chaim Yomi. Klal Daled. Halacha Tes. So we learned so far that you cannot disparage somebody in his deficiency in Avodas Hashem and Shmiras HaMitzvahs. Even if somebody violated a lav or an aseh that everybody knows about. However, if the sinner knows that it's asur and he did it b'miskavein and it's something that all of Klal Yisrael knows is asur, then the halach is you cannot tell anybody about it because he'll probably do tshuva. You reprimand him privately. But if he's the kind of guy that is likely to do it again and reprimanding him is not going to help, you could tell the Bezdin, you could tell his Rebbe, even if the Rebbe might repeat it. However, if he's the kind of guy that does not have any fear of God and he's always doing averos, the halacha is you could embarrass him. You could tell people about it, provided that you meet the 5 conditions of the Chofetz Chaim, that you saw it yourself. It's an avera that everybody knows is asur. You're not exaggerating. You're mechavin l'toyelas, and you're not trying to hide it from him. So now let's give some examples. Sivkat and Tes. Let's go back to where we began. That from that which we learned in the beginning of the simon, we could learn the asur leganes is chaver lesaper of midos hamagunas sheyesh le. It is asur to disparage your friend and to speak about him, about his bad midos. Let's say you know a guy, your next door neighbor. He's a bal gaiva, he's a bal kas, he's a bal kina. You know how to talk about it. You saw he was arrogant, or he got angry improperly, or other despicable midos. It is certainly disparaging. Even if it's true, who knows if he didn't do tshuva? Maybe his heart is embittered that he has these characteristics. Let's say you see he is accustomed to these bad midos, and his heart is not saddened by it at all. Nevertheless, you're now to go and mock him, and perhaps he doesn't know the severity of the isur. The truth is, we see it with our own senses. For many people, even Talmidei Chachamim, she'ein machzikin hamidos rois ha'ilul isur gadol kakach. They do not consider these midos rois as so terrible, k'may shehem al pi emes lamas bainim b'hem, as they are in reality. Even Talmidei Chachamim don't realize the severity of gaiva, kaas, and other midos rois as somebody who would contemplate the psukim u'ma'amarei Chazal. Many people think, even learned people, they just think it's something not proper. Maybe this sinner who has this bad midah is in that camp. He doesn't realize the severity. If he would appreciate the severity, he possibly would strengthen himself with all of his ability not to violate. We find such an idea in Masechta Shabbos. Shagag b'kares v'hezid b'lav shmei shgaga. That if someone violates a shoygeg, a kares b'shoygeg, it's, so to speak, like violating a lav b'mezid if somebody doesn't really appreciate how severe it is. Va'adarabba. Imraya oisay shoga b'achzor midas harois. Now if somebody sees someone else is accustomed to these midos rois, yesh loy lahaychicha, you should rebuke him, ulahatzia lefanav, and set forth before him, es chaymer isuran, the stringency of the isur, uvazeh yekayim, and if you reprimand him and you say, pal, you really need to control your anger, you need to speak in a softer tone. By doing so, you'd be mekayim a mitzvah saseh hoicheach toicheachas amisecha. Ve'efsher shayoyde loy sha'av lahu oisa. By the way, just want to point out that some people think the mitzvah of toichacha doesn't apply anymore, that there's a statement of Chaim Belazner that nobody knows how to do toichacha anymore, and therefore it's no longer applicable. Obviously, you see from the Chofetz Chaim that is not halachically correct. Chofetz Chaim, who came after Reb Chaim Belazner, is saying that Bizman Hazeh there is still a mitzvah da'iraisa of toicheach samisecha. Despite the fact that the Gemara says we don't know how to do it, well, you got to do your best job. It's possible that he would acknowledge that he's doing an avla. Aval ata darka yeshara ba'enav. But now his path is correct in his eyes. Like Mishlei says, Kol derech ish yashar ba'enav. Every man's path is straight in his eyes. Everybody thinks they're on the right path. As the saying goes, when it comes to self-delusion, every man is a genius. Okay? Al kain, asur lahachzikai al yedeze l'rasha v'leilech l'sabralav. Therefore, it is asur to consider him a rasha and to speak about him. V'afal pike, nevertheless, if you see someone who has a bad midah, kagoin gaiva, a kas, a shari midah israis, a shu batla mitaira. Let's say you see a guy, he has a seder every morning, reading Jewish magazines or non-Jewish magazines, or you know that a guy spends 4 hours on his phone every day. That's a problem. Nachain loy l'saper davar zeh. You should tell this to his children, Oyla Talmidav, or his students, Ulas Hiram, Shalo Yischabru Imai. Don't hang around this person. Can you imagine? Chofetz Chaim says, if you see a person has gaiva, kas, or is a batlan, you should tell the person's children or his students, Shalo Yischabru Imai. They should not spend time with him. Kedei shelo yilmadu imasav, so that you don't learn from his ways. So you say, but that's causing machlokes. No, that's not causing machlokes. That's steering people in the right path. The main reason the Torah warns us about lashon hara, even if it's true, the kavana is the kavana of the that's only if your kavana is to disgrace your friend and to rejoice over his shortcoming. If your kavana is to guard your friend that he doesn't learn from this person's activities, pashut the mutter. Not only is it permitted, u'mitzvah nami ika. It's a big mitzvah. Can you imagine? To tell someone's children, no, what so-and-so is doing is not right. Stay away from them. Not don't learn from his activities. Don't stay away from them. In such a situation, or the like, it would appear that it's a mitzvah for the speaker to explain the reason Lama misaper begnusay shel chaverai. Why you're speaking about the gnus of your friend. Because you don't want the listener to make a mistake and to permit more than you're doing. In other words, he might learn from you. Oh, you're allowed to disparage someone. So you need to explain, no, I'm telling this to you so that you don't learn from this person's ways. And also, so he doesn't come to wonder. Yesterday you gave me a whole drasha about not speaking lashon hara, and today you're telling me lashon hara. You're a paradox. Sometimes you tell me I can't speak even if it's true. I'm sorry, I made a mistake here. When the Chofetz Chaim says that you should tell the children, what he means is you should tell your own children. You tell your own children to stay away from Pleini Almaini. In other words, if you see someone is a Baal Gaiva, or a Baal Kas, or other Midos Rois, or a Batlan Mitaira, you should tell your own children, or your own Talmidim, stay away from Ruvain, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda. That's what the Chofetz Chaim is talking about. That you should tell this to your children. even though he says his children, it means his own children. His children, his Talmidim. V'atum esapra batzvei, and now you're saying it yourself. So in order to avoid people wondering about your inconsistency, that sometimes you tell them you're not to speak Lashon Hara even if it's true, and other times you're telling them Lashon Hara, so you need to explain to them what you're doing. Kahai gavna isa in Shulchan Aruch Yaradeya im humater davar sheish poskim le'isur b'erev Shabbos. If you permit something that some paskin is asur, if you permit it on Erev Shabbos, the kiyotz is that you have to explain, I'm only permitting it under these circumstances, even though normally it would be asur. You would have to explain such a thing. So again, if you see somebody of questionable character, it is a mitzvah to tell your own children or your own Talmidim to stay away from a person. Well, what if you see somebody of questionable character? Should you tell their children or their Talmidim? That's a tough question. That the Chofetz Chaim is not discussing. So I'll let you think about that one. Okay, Rabbi, say have a great day. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov.